This program came into being to really address the fact that there are folks across the province who cannot leave their communities to come to a teacher education program. And we recognize their gifts and their talents and their contributions. And so this is our effort, UBC's effort, to offer something to folks from those communities so they don't have to leave their communities, so they can continue to be in their communities, develop their practice, but also contribute to their schools and their communities at the same time.
Pull a little bit of tension back, and you can see that if some people are pulling too hard or really leaning into it or goofing off, it can throw off the whole group.
One of the things that I see across the province is that there is definitely a teacher shortage, and I think that what's great about this program is it's solving that problem. It's solving the issue of teacher retention.
We are the first program in British Columbia to have permission from the BC Teachers Council, to have a large portion of our courses online. And what that has allowed is for folks to stay in their communities during the school year. We come together for a month in the summer, but then we're in our schools or in our communities working during the day, and then we have classes in the evening online on Tuesdays and Thursdays. What that has enabled is it's created access for folks who are educational assistants, teaching on letters of permission, Indigenous support workers, and other folks in the community and schools, school staff, to continue to contribute and be and fill those jobs that there's no one to replace them in, but also have access to this program. So we come together in the summer to build community and connection, but we also go back to our communities and contribute there and learn online during the year.
It's getting teachers from their local place. And I think that's what's really beautiful about that is we come here and we learn about the importance of place-based education and land-based education. And then it allows us to go back home and kind of bring that knowledge of what we've learned back to our communities and apply it there.
It accommodates for individuals who have a family life or a working life, as well those who are living in rural areas. So we all come together once a year. Otherwise, our studies are online. And I think that the way that this course is 2 years versus the 1 year intensive, I think it's an advantage because we can go a little deeper into subjects and we have time to think about it more and let things sink in and really get into the material.
We're really revisioning teacher education. So rather than the silos of courses being distinct and separate, we're mirroring what's happening in the BC K-12 curriculum. And that is looking at big ideas, how those things cross over and blend between courses. We have taken our Indigenous education course and foregrounded it, put it at the very beginning instead of partway through or at the end, because the prominence of that Indigenous education course is critical to continue to weave through the entire 2-year program so that students have a strong foundation and through the Indigenous circle are strengthened by Indigenous perspectives, worldviews, and voices.
Representation is a form of harm reduction. So as an Indigenous person teaching about Indigenous things in an Indigenous course, representation is a really important piece. And so here we are, we're master's students, we're PhD candidates, and we're teaching these courses about Indigenous perspectives. It is so valuable to have Indigenous voices doing that work.
I think our involvement will unfold over time, and so teaching the course was the first step, and then teaching Edu for 40 again with the new cohort that will start next summer, and then also being part of the video series. So I think it's just unfolding in a very organic, natural way, and it's not forced. And so, we're always being asked to not just sit at the table, but actually have a voice at the table. And I think that that's important and really thankful that that's happening.
From the very first semester, we thought about how do we engage in equity and diversity and decolonization work. And so we purposely chose 3 courses to begin with. Ed Studies 401, which really looks at diversity and society. And there's a pretty strong critical theory or social justice lens there. We also start with Indigenous education in Canada, and so working with our Indigenous Circle, we had a team of 4 Indigenous educators co-creating and facilitating learning together. And then finally, Terry Taylor and I taught the inquiry course at the beginning so that we're inquiring into these ideas and, more importantly, exploring our identities as educators and how they relate to these different topics. Not to suggest there's one way to be an educator, but to help our educators think about who they are in relation to this work.
So I would say the biggest impact I've had with the UBC program is that prior to coming into this program, I really thought that teaching was, your traditional form of, all right, I'm gonna put out the material, you're gonna fill out the answers, you're gonna try and remember it to the best of your ability and regurgitate it, and then you're gonna forget it forever. And that was very much my kind of idea of what education looked like. And then I started this program and it was like a full 180. It was just the focus on things like land-based learning, place-based education, inclusive education, and the whole idea that we really need to have this universal design for our learners rather than making them feel ostracized and left out. So one of the biggest teachings I've taken away from this program was how to be inclusive to all of my learners and make sure that they all feel that they're getting an equitable access to their education.
The Rural and Remote Teacher Education Program takes a place-conscious perspective, recognizing that there are many perspectives in rural communities and that when we draw upon them together, we can really engage in meaningful change in education. We also recognize that things that are happening in rural and remote communities are often very innovative because we have to innovate in our places based on where we are.
There was this one quote in the beginning of our first summer that was, I think it was by Palmer, and it was, "You teach who you are." And so really to me that just means like being the best person that you can be, because that's who you're gonna bring to class every day to your students. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And so being authentically yourself is, I think, something that they really look for in this program, and they really nurture.
It's a lot, it's intense, but you are so well supported here, and you will make amazing connections with people from the entire province, which is not something I thought of when I was applying for education programs. I knew that forming connections and having people to collaborate and work with and support you was important, but just the being able to have the whole province and all those different regions is really, really cool. So yeah, great idea.
In all honesty, it is a lot of work because a lot of us are working at the same time as taking courses, but it's where your heart is, it's what you want to do. And for those of us that can't leave our small communities because of family commitments or other commitments, it is such a great option for us to learn and actually fulfill those dreams.
We have been building the momentum and the enthusiasm for this program across the province. There are so many folks who are really keenly interested in staying in their home communities and contributing to those places. Really ensuring that love of rural and remote places by staying in those places and becoming amazing teachers that will give back for generations.